Well, if I may, George Lucas, the eminent film director, referred to you as the George Bernard Shaw of satirists. Remember that?
Uh, yeah, I remember that from when we did the takeoff on Star Wars, and I got that letter, and Mort Drucker got that letter that we both should get Academy
Right.
Awards, and then the next day we got a letter from their lawyers saying that MAD was going to be sued and that they wanted the profits and they wanted the artwork, and William Gaines just took a copy of our letter and wrote across the lawyer's letter, "Gee, your boss George liked it." And of course, we never heard from the attorneys again since George Lucas loved it.
Well, you've written for MAD for over half a century of incredible satires, film things, TV shows. When is it that you thought you could do this as a young kid, or who were your
Oh
influences?
yeah, yeah. No, it's very funny because Sid Caesar is my main influence. Watching
Okay.
shows when I was a kid, the old black and white show, that when they would do the movie satires, I thought, "Oh my gosh, I want to write this. This is so funny." Uh, but in school, I always wrote for the school newspaper, and as I always tell people, I was never into sports, but in my cellar in Brooklyn, I had a microphone and I could broadcast to the lady next door, only because I ran a speaker out the window into her kitchen. Um, and now, like 50, 60 years later, I'm still with a microphone, but now, thanks to technology, you can annoy people around the world.
So a show grew in Brooklyn, huh? Jesus.
It started in
When,
Brooklyn,
when,
absolutely.
what was your first initiation to Mad Magazine as a writer?
You know what? I had written a takeoff on Imperial Margarine commercials, and I had never submitted anything. So I bought a book called Writer's Yearbook, and it said, make sure to send a self addressed stamped envelope. Otherwise, they'll throw it away if they reject it. So I sent the self addressed envelope with my script, and then the big envelope came back, and I thought maybe there's a note that says it's almost good or something. Uh, and I opened the envelope, and it was stuffed with cardboard. And I took out the cardboard and scribbled on the cardboard. It said, "Ha ha ha. Thought you got rejected. Stapled to this cardboard is a
It
check for $100." Uh,
was big money
Signed
then,
by Nick Magdalene. Yeah, it was big money
right?
back then. And then that led to a lot of a lot of years of writing for MAD.
With all of the movie and TV satires you've done, especially with Mr. Drucker and the other illustrators, tell us the process. Do you do the words first, or the illustration first, or the theme, or what?
Oh no, certainly the script first because then they know how many pages to lay it out for.
Right?
Sometimes if they already have an issue well underway, they'll say, "Dick, write this for 4 pages." Or if the issue is far down the line, they'll say, "Write it whatever length you want." Then they edit it, and then I rewrite it if they want that. Then they lay out all the balloons, and that's when it goes to the artist. So, and then the artist does something called the blue lines, which is pencil sketches of everything, and I never get to see that normally. And but the art director and the editor go over that and make any changes for the artist. Uh, but not seeing
In
the
addition to
artwork is great.
satires,
Yes.
you did a lot of just straight up articles with stuff like this. I've had this somewhere for 45 years now. This is Mad Magazine, January of 1975. And your whole thing is what Richard Nixon should do now that he's pardoned. Oh my God.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, MAD was always very timely, and you know, one of the things that Bill Gaines said is, "Let's never write for an age." That time, MAD is owned by Warner Brothers, and they would always say, "Do a reader survey," and Bill said, "Suppose we find out it's all 13-year-olds. What are we going to do? Write for 13-year-olds? No, write to be funny. As long as we're funny, who cares? As long as people buy the magazine, If they don't understand it, let them go read an encyclopedia. So we never wrote, we just wrote to be funny. So that was a joyous thing about Gaines was I was on an interview show and the reporter said, Mr. Gaines, you're a genius. And Bill said, no, the writers and the artists are the genius. If I've done anything for the success of Mad, it is to provide an atmosphere in which writers and artists can survive. And that was Bill. He just he was just great. There was no
Could you
dress
tell us,
code.
right?
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say no dress
Could
code.
you
Just be funny.
could you tell us of a field trip, shall we say, of the staff to a subscriber a bit distant?
That's how the Mad Trip started. Is Bill took care of everything. Bill wrote all the checks. Bill did all the accounting, and Bill knew that the one subscriber in Suriname, I think it was Suriname, did not resubscribe. And on a whim, Bill said, "Oh, let's just take the staff and go to his house." And Bill did. He took 15 people and knocked on his door and said, "You didn't subscribe. Would you renew?" And he said, "Oh yeah." And I always add, and then his neighbor resubscribed. So
Right.
for only about 10 grand, we doubled our circulation in Suriname. Yeah, Bill was
Good
just
stuff.
a great person.
So, in addition to Mad, which we all know you from, you also wrote for television shows.
Yeah, for years, a friend of mine said, Goodson's doing this new show called Match Game, and they need a lot of questions, and you might want to do this. So I met with him, and not many people who know Match Game know that the first year it was all just regular, like serious questions. Name a red flower, name an animal that lays eggs, name something you serve with eggs. So 10 months, it was a year contract, and 10 months in, Goodson called me in and said, the show's canceled. Um, you have 2 months of shows, but you can start looking around. And then over the weekend, I was thinking, it's got to be something better than name something, an animal that lays eggs. So I went to Goodson and I said, Mark, instead of these bland questions, why don't we do questions like, Mary liked to pour gravy on John's blank was the first thing I ever wrote. And Goodson laughed. He said, "Oh my God, what will they say?" I said, "Well, they'll laugh, and then they'll say
Right.
meatloaf, mashed potatoes." And he said, "Well, it's canceled. Just do what you want." And I started
Just
doing
have fun.
those, and yeah, and he called me in again after 6 weeks, and he said, "They're in for another year. Keep writing that stuff." He said, as long as there's a Match Game, you'll have a job." And he was right. I was there for like 18 years.
Could you comment? Oh, to get back to Mad, the influence that Mad has had over half a century on satire, on people's outlooks, if you will, and with celebrities, there's a sketch of where Fred Astaire actually wore an Alfred E. Newman mask while he danced. I mean, come on.
Yes, no. Well, Mad was really unique. So many stories meeting men saying, "Oh, when Mad came out, I had to hide that because my mother would say they're making fun of the government. You can't make fun of the government? They made fun of ads. Who makes fun of ads?" So Mad was like really, when it started, a voice in the wilderness, and it had a lot of influence on people. Then, of course, when Saturday Night Live started, and a lot of Mad competition, and then satire became a really important part of comedy. Mad, lost its clout. But at the beginning, like the first 10 years, oh my God, the Poop Side Down adventure sold more than 2 million copies. It was an astounding thing for a magazine that didn't have ads.
And it's been published in how many different languages around the world?
Like 9 languages.
Right.
I don't know how many are left, but they would take whatever they wanted out of our magazine and, of course, drop things, anything about the IRS or Uncle Sam, things that didn't make sense in their country, and then just replace it with satire that each country, the writers in each country and artists did for the issue for their own people.
But just with the satires, I mean, I remember when President Obama was first in office, and I asked him a question about something. He goes, "Well, I don't know about something, but I have Alfred E. Newman's ears." Another one,
Yeah.
Howard Stern, the film, right? Howard Stern, the movie Private Parts, where his wife is yelling at him to get out of the bathroom, and then they cut to him sitting on the John saying, "Honey, I have to do. I'm doing important show research." He's reading Mad on the John, of course. The incredible influence you guys have had over 2 generations, I would say. No?
A lot. I know from comedians and David, who does the show Comedians and Coffee. Comedians drink coffee in cars. Howard Stern was on this. Jerry Seinfeld. Okay.
Okay.
And they started talking about Mad Magazine, and Howard Stern said, when I was a kid, I wanted to be one of the usual gang of idiots. And Jerry Seinfeld said, "Oh my God, I love Mad." On the Tonight Show, Johnny Carson asked Michael Fox, "When did you know you were a star?" And Michael Fox said, "When Mort Drucker drew my likeness on the cover of Mad, I knew I was a star." So,
He made
I
it.
mean, astounding stories. Yes.
Of the many things you've done over the years, could you tell us about, as Beth began the program, was with the gadgets, the whiz guy you are for how many years?
I've
How did
always
that
loved
start?
gadgets. It started when someone from Goodson Todman, who was producing To Tell the Truth, left and went over to back then Fox was called Metro Media, and she started doing a show with a cook and a handyman and a gardener and a pet guy, and she said, "Do you still have all those crazy gadgets in your office?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." She said, "Would you ever come show some on television?" And I said, all right. So I did some, and she said, "Oh, people are writing in. They like that. Do you have more?" And I did more. And then she said, "Do you want to do it every week?" And I said, "Why not?" And then someone from Regis saw it, and I went over to Regis and then on to Good Morning America and now World News Now. So I've always loved gadgets, and this is just a way to play with gadgets. And with Bill was great because Bill had money. Bill would say, "I need an answering machine. Go buy one, play with it, and then tell me how to use it in the simplest way possible. I hate instruction books." So, or the first VCR, I said, "Bill, you want to buy a VCR?" And he said, "Yes, buy me one." So I would buy it, play with it, give it on to him, say, "Bill, push this button, push this button." The answering machine, I would just program it for him. And the funny thing about the answering machine is I was working on To Tell the Truth, and every week I would get all the celebrities who were on to call Bill's answering machine and leave a message. And never, one of the things about a practical joke is you never ever say anything about it. And one day on one of these foreign trips, Bill said, "Do you know Rich Little?" And I said, You mean the guy who does mimic voices?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I know of him." And he said, "You don't know him personally?" I said, "No. Why?" And he said, "Some mimic calls my answering machine and sounds like all of these famous people." I said, "Billy, it is those people. It's all the people that came to Goodson Todman." I said, "That was Peggy Cass. That was Kitty Kyle. That was Gary Moore. That was whoever it was." He said, "Oh my God, I've been erasing them thinking it's a..." Anyway, so that was a Bill Gaines story.
Well, if I may, when Beth referred earlier to us musicians, I can remember all the years playing shows. You play the same music 8 times a week. You kind of get bored. we used to all have Mad Magazine in the pit while we were playing. And Friday night, when you
Oh,
have a long
great.
weekend, somebody would come in. I got a couple of Mads, man. Okay, we'll make it through the weekend, man. I still remember Providence, Rhode Island. This would be like 1990. I'm playing the same show for like 2 years. Oh my God, we're on tour. And at the intermission, I come back from the bathroom break, get a glass of water, whatever. I sit back in my stand in the pit. And the lady says to me with her kids, "Hi, sir, you're in the band." "Yes." "I have to ask you, what are you reading?" And I said, and you're giggling. I can see you giggling while you're reading. I said, "It's Mad Magazine." And she goes, "I thought so." I said, "Where are you sitting?" "They're in the very top of the balcony." So
Oh
thank you
my
for
God.
keeping us. So
Oh,
you
that's
got a lot
great.
of music. What can I tell you? So that the whole and last question, if I may, you guys with the humor and the references to things in history and popular culture and just in general, you feel now that people aren't as attuned or educated maybe as they were 30 or 40 years ago to understand what you were about or what you were referring to?
You know, fortunately, until the day he died, we never ever did a reader survey. So
Right.
the only thing we know from the mail is that Mad skew toward a male audience,
Hmm.
because Gaines read all the mail, and nowadays getting someone's attention is nearly impossible. In the old days, everybody knew a movie because everybody went to see it. Nowadays, there are 3 billion movies between Netflix and Amazon and all the streaming services. So it's very hard to get anybody's attention, very hard to keep anybody's attention. Um, so I think it's just that there was an explosion of satire and entertainment, and that helped kill Mad. And I personally
Well, on behalf,
blame you because you
absolutely.
gave up your
Well,
orchestra job. No, go ahead.
well, I got the disease in sixth grade in the English class. Started to read Mad, and I didn't get caught, thank God. Thank you for all your work and continue doing what you're doing. And once again, on behalf of several generations of folks, thanks for what you gave us and you made us think. God forbid. So I guess it's time to go back to Beth.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. That's great. You're
Thank
very
you, sir.
kind.